What's going on, guys? I'm going to attempt to do a video series and show you how I make a slip joint folder. I've been looking across YouTube and some various forums for a while now, and I really haven't found too many people that have done a very in-depth study or a video series on how to make a slip joint. So I'm hoping to try to kind of fill in the gap there and put a little bit more information out there for those of you guys who may be in a similar boat as me and are just now kind of beginning to learn how to make folders or even just how to make knives in general. And hopefully this will be more of a help than a hindrance to many of you. But before I get started in the meat and potatoes of slip joint making, I do want to throw out a couple of minor housekeeping points. First of all, I've kind of already mentioned it. I'm fairly new to this and am by no means claiming to be any sort of an expert, especially when it comes to slip joint making, as I've only recently begun making them myself. And the other thing is, I'm by no means claiming to have the best way or the only way to do any of the processes or procedures that I'm going to show you in these videos. These are just the way I'm doing them now, and even that will probably change as my experience grows or my tools change. So I would consider this even just somewhat of a snapshot in time as to how I'm doing something. Again, not the only way, not the best way, and there's certainly many ways to skin a cat. So take it for what it is, just an example or maybe a suggestion. And if you have a better way or a different way that you think will work as well or better, by all means feel free to use it. I'm not telling you that this is the only way that you can do something. So with that being said, we'll kind of go ahead and get started. I do want to apologize for the mess in the background. I really don't keep a very tidy shop, especially with all the projects I've had going on lately. So hopefully that won't be too big of a distraction from what I'm trying to convey here. But I'll go ahead and apologize in advance for that anyhow. But we'll go ahead and get started. I'm trying not to spend a whole lot of extra time going over needless information, such as what a slip joint is, or just little details that I think are more or less understood or go without saying. And I know I can be a little bit long-winded at times, probably now being a great example. But I'll try to keep things short, concise, and to the point as much as possible. And if I do skip around from one step or another, I'll at least try to make sure that everybody understands where I'm coming from, where I'm going, and how I got there. So again, let's go ahead and get started. And probably the first thing that any of you guys who will be making a slip joint will want to figure out is what kind of slip joint are you going to make. Obviously there's dozens, if not hundreds of patterns out there to choose from in all different shapes and sizes, and it can be pretty daunting even just try to figure out what kind of pattern you want to start with. I'm not going to say that one pattern is necessarily easier or harder than another, but I will recommend, if you're starting out, just to go with a single blade pattern. Even if you like a trapper style knife, like a two-bladed trapper, pick just one of the blades and go with that. I know on my workbench here I've got a small swell-end jack made by Case. It's actually got two blades in it. If you like one or the other, I'd pick either, say, the pen blade or the clip point, and just make a single bladed knife and go from there. Now when you do decide what kind of a pattern you want to start with, there's a couple ways you can go about duplicating it or getting set up to make it. Probably the easiest and quickest method would be to just take an existing knife apart, and that does a couple of things for you. One, it gives you a very precise and exact pattern that you can trace or copy and use to build one just like it, and it also goes ahead and gives you a little better understanding of how slip joints are made, how they put together, and how they function from the inside out. Now another thing you can do is actually draw a pattern out on some paper. And the way I like to do things is actually to put it into a CAD program or a computer-aided drafting software. I've actually got a copy of AutoCAD 2002, which is pretty old and almost archaic anymore, but it does do a pretty good job as far as a basic drafting program. There are also other free programs online that are pretty good, such as DraftSite. I believe there's one or two others that I've heard recommended. You can do your own research as far as what the best one is for you. But I find them very useful in getting a very exact and functional template together before I even put any tools to steel or material in making a knife. And what I actually did for this one is I had a scanned drawing inside my computer that I went ahead and laid into the drafting software. I traced over it using the plotting tools and got the basic template that you see here. And again, what I like about the drafting programs is that you can actually isolate individual pieces for copying out and making templates. You can even put them all together and pivot the blade, open and close it, make sure all the tolerances and clearances are right. And you can really make all your adjustments before you even turn your machines on. So I find that very useful. And also, once you get everything dialed in, you have an unlimited supply of templates that you can print out from your printer and go ahead and make your knives with. Now, once you do get one dialed in, if this is the way that you choose to do it, obviously you can take each individual piece, separate it from the knife, and make its own template and design. And this is all to scale. I make my drawings 1:1 scale so that these holes are all the actual size they're going to be. This is an 1/8 inch pivot, 3/32 pins for the back spring. And I like to put little cross hatches or crisscrosses in the middle of the holes to help me when I'm punching the holes so that they're centered and pretty close to the exact spot so that I know my knife's going to work when I put it together. So once you have this, you can print it out and you can actually transfer it with some spray adhesive to some kind of a template stock. And for that you can really use anything. I've used cardstock, sheet metal, G10, carbon fiber, anything